Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all well. Today, I thought it might be interesting / fun to have a look at all the books I have rated 1 star and 1.5 star since records began. So my records began in 2018, which was when I started logging my reading on Goodreads. I now use Storygraph. In that time, I've given 8 books 1.5 stars and 24 books 1 star. I do DNF a lot of books, so I don't give out 1.5 stars very often because I've generally DNF'd before that point. Just to explain what the ratings mean for me, when I give a book 2 stars, that generally means I wasn't keen, it was okay. It was sort of whereas a 3 stars is a thumbs up, a 2 stars is sort of like an in the middle. A 1.5 star means that I didn't like it, and then a 1 star means that I hated it. So this is an interesting list. Some of these books are quite popular. Some of them you may have heard me talk about before. Some of them you won't have heard me talk about before. Some of them I can distinctly remember why I hated them. Some my memory is less clear. There is one book on this list that I gave 1 star to that even I was surprised to see that I had given it 1 star. We'll save that one till last. So I'm just going to refer to my story graph, which will be linked below, as I go through these books. So we'll start with the 1.5 star books. And the one that I read most recently was the Rorschach Texts by Stephen Hall. So this was a thriller, quite conceptual, and it just didn't quite work for me. It was one that I'd been keen to read for a little while and I picked up a second-hand copy of. But I just didn't get it. Next is a very popular book, Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. Obviously it was on the Booker shortlist, it was on the Women's Prize shortlist. A lot of people love that book, and it's quite a long book. For the most part, well, as I was reading it, it was sitting at around a 2 star for me, so it was all right. But I hated the ending. I'm not going to say what that is. I hated it. It just annoyed me. And there was also some stuff that happens later on in the book which to me felt sort of shoehorned into the plot, just to have certain elements in there, and that kind of annoyed me as well. Sorry. Next, another quite popular book actually, The Cat Who Saved Books by Suzuki Natsukawa. This is a short Japanese novel, and it sort of sounds like the kind of thing I might like. It's about books. It features a cat. But I felt like I could see the author pulling the puppet strings and sort of trying to tug on the reader's heartstrings in a way that just seemed too obvious and twee, and it really didn't work for me. And I remember thinking it was a little bit misogynist as well in some of the character portrayals. Next is Multiple Choice by Alejandro Zambra, which I think was translated from Spanish. This is a short book and it was quite strange, and I think I possibly didn't give it the time it deserved. So it's quite experimental in its form, told in sort of multiple choice type form, and I just didn't get it, but I think I sort of sped through it too fast. That was possibly my problem. Next, this is another fairly popular book, The Phone Box at the End of the World by Laura Imai Messina. Similar to The Cat Who Saved Books, this is about a phone box where you can like speak to your loved ones who have died, I think. And it was just a bit like sickeningly sort of trying to pull on your heartstrings, and I really didn't like it. A lot of people really like it, but I just thought it was too, just not good. Next is a book that I was actually highly anticipating. It's I can never say this word, the ADSAWA Murders by Riku Onda. So this is a Japanese crime novel about a extended family who are having some sort of gathering and they all get poisoned, and there's a little girl who survives. And the main reason I didn't like it was because I found the ending unsatisfactory, to say the least. And it just wasn't a proper murder mystery crime novel in my eyes. Yeah, disappointing. Next, Solitaire by Alice Oseman. I like all the other Alice Oseman I've read. Solitaire follows, what's her name? Tor, I think her name is, who's Charlie from Heartstopper's sister. And this was this Alice Oseman's debut novel, or was certainly one of her earlier ones, I think. And it just felt all over the place to me. Like there was just too much going on that didn't connect well. And it really didn't work for me. But I want to read everything Alice Oseman has written, even though I didn't like that one. And next, another surprise, Whiteout by Ragnar Jónasson, who is an Icelandic crime author. This is the 5th book in the Dark Iceland series. And he is one of my favourite sort of contemporary crime authors, but clearly I didn't like this one. I don't remember why I specifically didn't like it, because generally I like the series. It's quite a sort of classic detective style crime series, but clearly this one just didn't work for me. On to the 1-star books then. So there's 24 of these. First one is a crime novel that I don't remember anything about, called It Should Have Been Me by Susan Wilkins. Don't remember why I hated it. Next is Twisted by Steve Kavanagh, who's quite a popular crime author. I did have a check and I have read 13 by Steve Kavanagh. I gave that one 4 stars. Yeah, I do remember Twisted. I think I found it quite boring and just really didn't like it at all. Next is Lost Girl by Adam Neville, which is like a thriller, horror, science fiction novel. I liked The Ritual by Adam Neville. I thought that was a very good book. That's quite Stephen King-esque. But Lost Girl clearly didn't work for me. We'll skip over that one. We'll come back to that one at the end. Next is Host by Robin Cook. So this is like a sort of a medical thriller. And I just didn't think it was very good. Next is an author who we will see twice on this list. This is Resistance is Futile by Jenny T. Colgan. And Jenny Colgan generally writes sort of quite light-hearted romantic fiction. Resistance is Futile is that, but it's also sci-fi. And I thought it was awful, like really, really awful. Next is When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. This is a sort of a crime novel that I had been looking forward to reading, and sort of about gentrification in New York and race, and the pacing was really off for me. I think it was really slow paced, and then all of a sudden like all this crazy stuff started happening in the last 20% of the book. And it really didn't work for me. And I think I found the dialogue in that book really unbelievable. Next is a book that I remember hating, Clay's Ark by Octavia E. Butler. That's the only Octavia E. Butler book I've read. The reason I picked Clay's Ark up was simply because my library didn't have a copy of Kindred at the time. So I just randomly picked up that one. And yeah, I really hated it. So it's sort of dystopian sci-fi. I think we've got aliens. And if I remember rightly, there's a lot of weird sexual stuff. I think there's incest. It was really weird, not in a good way. It's really put me off reading any more Octavia Butler, but I feel like I should probably give Kindred a go because my library does now have a copy of Kindred, so maybe I will give it a go. But Clay's Ark I thought was awful. Next is a book that I'm kind of surprised I didn't like because it sounded like my kind of book, and it's The Driver's Seat by Muriel Spark. So this is quite a short book, and I think it's a bit thriller-esque, but a bit, yeah. I don't remember why I hated it, but I remember being surprised that I hated it because I thought I was going to really like it. And I don't think I've read any other Muriel Spark since then. Next, we've got some classic crime fiction, The Tiger in the Smoke by Marjorie Allingham. I think I've read or tried to read 2 or 3 books by Marjorie Allingham actually, and never got on with them. The Tiger in the Smoke is her most famous novel, and it's very atmospheric, but I think it was just atmosphere for me, and I couldn't get through that to get anything else out of the book. Next is a book that is pretty popular, The Base Rock by Evie Wilde. Sort of literary fiction, I think about 3 women. And I'd heard loads of good things about it, and just remember reading it and being like, why do people like this book? Yeah, I really, really didn't like it. Next is From the Wreck by Jane Rawson. I remember I got this in a book box I used to be subscribed to, not the one I'm subscribed to at the moment. And it's another one I was looking forward to. I think it's a bit sci-fi-esque, is that fair to say? Fantasy, it says. And I really didn't like it. Next is How the Dead Speak by Val McDermid. So this is a book in the, what's it called? The TV series is called Wire in the Blood, isn't it? It's that series of books. And this was number 11 in the series. And it's a series that I had really enjoyed. And this book I thought was truly awful. And I couldn't believe that Val McDermid had written this book because it was so bad. It was so bad. It was like one of the worst crime books I'd ever read. I hated it. Next is another crime novel, The Ice House by Minette Walters. Don't remember why I hated that one. I feel like I've read a couple of things by Minette Walters. The Sculptress, I think I read and thought was okay, but The Ice House, clearly I hated. Next is one I do remember, excuse me, why I hated it. This is Out by Natsuo Kurino, which is a Japanese crime novel. So this is quite a long book, and I think all the other reviews I've heard of it are positive. But there is some stuff that happens towards the end of the book, which I hated. I thought it was utter garbage. And it was to do with the way that a sexual assault was portrayed. And I don't understand how anyone can read that and not think that's a problem, basically. Next, another sort of thriller, Take Me In by Sabine Durant. I do remember thinking that this was just really not very good at all. Here we have the next Jenny Colgan, The Boy I Loved Before. I don't remember anything about this, or indeed why I read it. But clearly Jenny Colgan is not an author for me. Next is a book that I've heard other people speak highly of, The Warlow Experiment by Alex Nathan, about some guy who pays some other man to live in underground in some bunker he's made for some reason. I just thought it was awful. Next is a kind of a classic, A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I hated it. Yeah, this is shelved as middle grade fantasy. They've made a film of it, haven't they? I really hated it. Next is a book that I think was on the Women's Prize long list a few years ago, and I've heard mixed things about it. Some people really like it, and I have heard other people say that they don't like it. So I know I'm not alone. It's Luster by Raven Leilani. So at the time I read it, it had not long come out. I'd heard really positive reviews of the book, and it's quite a short book, which is why I didn't DNF it. And I remember reading it and thinking, surely like I'm going to get to a point where I suddenly understand why people love this book, and it just didn't happen. That really didn't work for me at all. Next is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, a book which I feel like it should be my kind of thing. It's historical, it's horror, and it's queer. This is a long book as well. I don't know why I didn't DNF it, but it just really didn't work for me at all. Next is The Bus on Thursday by Shirley Barrett. So I think this was sort of literary fiction, a little bit quirky. Really didn't like it. Next is a book I don't remember why I didn't like it, but it's Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist by Rachel Cohn. Shelved as YA. Clearly I hated it. And second to last is an author who I really, really like actually. But this is Bone China by Laura Purcell. So Laura Purcell writes historical fiction. The Silent Companions is my favourite of the ones that she has written so far. I think I've liked all of her books, except clearly I hated Bone China. I do remember hating it and being surprised because I'd really enjoyed her other books. And then should we come back to the one that even I was surprised to see? I had given 1 star. So on the face of it, I feel like this is a book that I should like. It sounds like my kind of thing. And my memory of reading it, if I had to guess what rating I'd given it, I would have said I probably gave it a 2 stars because I remember not getting on with it. But I don't remember hating it, and I must have hated it to have given it 1 star. Anyway, it's The Blood Chamber and Other Stories by Angela Carter. Again, another book that on the face of it feels like it should be my kind of thing. Like, I do really like short stories. I would like to read more by Angela Carter actually, to give her another go. And I wonder if what maybe didn't quite work for me is that I don't really like fairy tale retellings. And I don't know if it's all fairy tale retellings, but I know at least some of it is fairy tale retellings, which I don't tend to like. But I wonder why I hated it, because 1 star means I hated it. So there we go. That's all my 1 star and 1.5 stars. So for comparison, in that period of time, I've read 870 books. So yeah, 24 1 star, 8 1.5 stars. If I didn't DNF as much as I did, those numbers would be much higher. So let me know if you've got any thoughts on any of these books. Have you read any of the ones that I mentioned? Have you read Clay's Ark? I've never heard anyone else talk about Clay's Ark. That was a weird book. Yeah, let me know if you've got any thoughts about any of these books. Let me know what your most hated books are. Thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.